In this discussion, we will discuss the discussion question of discuss the process for making a sell or process further type of decision. If we see a discussion question or essay question such as this, our goal typically is to expand on the discussion question or essay question, then being more likely to pick up the items that are going to pick up the points for an essay question, and the discussion question typically adding to the discussion is our goal. So expanding on the topic is usually what we're looking to do. Keeping that in mind, let's go through this again. Discuss the process for making a sell or process further type of decision. So we might first want to think, okay, what is a sell or process further type of decision? We might want to take a step back and say, hey, this is a managerial type of decision typically, as opposed to financial accounting type of decision. Financial accounting usually being the recording of transactions in accordance with a set of rules. The managerial accounting often being for the decision-making processes. What should the company do in order to generate the most revenue? Making the internal type of decisions, the decisions that are going to be outside kind of the norm. They don't happen on an everyday, day-to-day basis. So that type of discussion might be the first place to start. This, of course, falls into one of those types of decisions, the sell or process further type of decision. So that's going to be a question as to what should we do within this system? Should we sell something at this point or process it further? This is a common managerial accounting type question that would come up. It could be the point where we have a system or an item of inventory possibly that maybe is damaged or something like that. And the question is, should we sell it now or just scrap it and get whatever we can for it at this point in time? Or should we process it further and possibly sell it for more after we process it further, or in other words, fix it? Or we might have a system where we always process to one point, say like we make coffee beans up to the coffee beans, and then we think, should we process forward to coffee grounds or something like that? And the question there would be, should we process further? Would that be a smart thing to do, or should we just sell the coffee beans? So those are going to be similar type of questions that we would have with a sell or process further type question. So we would go through a managerial accounting question such as that by thinking of the relevant costs, the relevant revenue, right? The relevant revenue, the incremental revenue, relevant costs, incremental costs. If we're thinking about a system where we have a product that is damaged in some way, and the question is, should we sell now or process it? In other words, fix it. Then we have to be aware that any cost up until this time is sunk. So those costs are sunk costs, and we wouldn't be taking them into consideration from this point forward. Only at this point in time forward would be the costs that we are considering as of now. When we're talking about a sell or process further in terms of a production process, say coffee to coffee beans to coffee grounds, then the point that we consider is going to be at the point of the split, where the split would happen. Should we process further? In other words, any costs prior to the split, prior to our example to the coffee beans, wouldn't necessarily be possibly sunk. We might want not consider them sunk costs, but they're costs that are not relevant to this decision process because they're not going to differ between the two decisions as to whether we sell now or we process further. So it's not really sunk in the same way because it's not like they were damaged or anything. This is just our normal process, but the concept is much the same. So in other words, if we had a defective product and we're stuck at this point in time whether we should fix it or not, well, the prior costs we can safely say are sunk. If we're at a point in time where our process is to process coffee beans continually, and we're just saying at this cutoff point, anything before that is going to be the same under either method, then we might not term it sunk, but it's kind of similar to our processing thinking process. Those are done. I mean, we're not considering those. They're not relevant to our decision-making process. Then, of course, we would consider the incremental revenue of us either selling now or us processing further and compare and contrast that. And then the incremental costs of us selling now or processing further. Obviously, if we sell now, there are no other costs, right? And if we process further, there will be, but we'll be able to sell the item hopefully at a higher amount per unit. And therefore, we'd have to compare the incremental revenue, incremental cost, the incremental net income to see whether or not this would be a good or bad decision.